The Eclipse Project. The holographic display cast an eerie blue glow across Commander Elena Reyes' face as she studied the enemy fleet's movement. 57 Araxian battlecruisers hung in the void just beyond Pluto's orbit, their sleek obsidian hulls absorbing rather than reflecting the distant sunlight. Behind them, another 100 support vessels waited, a silent armada promising humanity's extinction. "They've given us 24 hours to surrender," Admiral Takahashi said, his weathered face betraying no emotion. "Their terms are simple: total disarmament and integration into the Galactic Concord as a protectorate species." Elena's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse, then we face the same fate as the Centauri colonies." The Admiral's voice dropped. "Total planetary sterilization." The room fell silent. Everyone present had seen the footage of the Centauri worlds, once vibrant colonies reduced to radioactive glass in a matter of hours. 3 billion lives erased because they had refused to bow to Araxian demands. "Our conventional fleet can't match theirs," General Santos observed from across the table. "Even if we deployed everything, we'd be outnumbered 4-1. "Then it's time," Admiral Takahashi said quietly, nodding to his aide. "Activate Project Eclipse." Elena felt her heart rate spike. Project Eclipse was spoken of only in whispers among the highest echelons of Earth Defense Command. A theoretical weapons platform so advanced it violated 17 different articles of the Galactic Concord's Arms Limitation Treaty. "Commander Reyes," the Admiral continued, "you've been selected to command Eclipse. Your combat record and psychological profile make you uniquely qualified." "Sir," Elena began, but the Admiral raised a hand. "This isn't a request, Commander. Report to Darkside Base on Luna in 6 hours. The fate of our species now rests in your hands." The journey to Luna's dark side took place in complete communications blackout. Elena spent the time reviewing her orders on a quantum-encrypted tablet that would self-destruct once read. Project Eclipse had been in development for 15 years, hidden from both the public and the Galactic Concord monitoring stations. Its existence alone could trigger war, but with the Araxians already at their doorstep, that point was moot. Darkside Base was buried 2 kilometers beneath the lunar surface, accessible only through a mining shaft disguised as an abandoned Helium-3 operation. As Elena's shuttle descended into the massive underground hangar, she got her first glimpse of humanity's last hope. The Eclipse didn't look like any warship she'd ever seen. Where traditional human vessels were boxy and utilitarian, and Araxian ships were smooth and organic, the Eclipse was wrong. Its angular hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on any single section. It was relatively small for a capital ship, perhaps 400 meters in length, but there was something predatory in its lines that made Elena's skin prickle. "Impressive, isn't she?" a voice came from behind. Elena turned to find a tall, rail-thin man with unkempt gray hair and eyes that seemed to calculate everything they observed. "Dr. Malcolm Chen," he offered, extending a hand. "Chief Designer." "Commander Reyes," she replied, shaking his hand. "What exactly am I looking at, Doctor?" "The culmination of forbidden science," Chen said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Eclipse incorporates technology derived from the Thule incident artifacts." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The Thule incident, a crashed alien vessel discovered in Antarctica decades before humanity's official first contact with extraterrestrial life. The technology recovered had been deemed too dangerous for development by the Galactic Concord when Earth joined. "Everything about this ship breaks the rules," Chen continued as they walked toward the vessel. "The hull is composed of programmable matter infused with quantum-locked particles. The drive system uses artificial singularities to bend space-time. The weapons, well, you'll see." As they approached the boarding ramp, Elena noticed something odd. "Where are the weapon mounts?" Chen smiled. "The entire ship is a weapon, Commander, or more precisely, a reality manipulation platform." The interior of the Eclipse was unlike any vessel Elena had served on. The corridors were curved in strange, non-Euclidean angles, and the lighting seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The command center was a spherical chamber with stations for only 8 crew members. Minimal crew requirement, Chen explained. Most systems are managed by the ship's quantum eye. Eye? Elena asked sharply. That's expressly forbidden under Concord law. As I said, Commander, we're breaking all the rules now. A soft blue light pulsed from a circular device in the center of the command sphere. Hello, Commander Reyes, came a melodious, genderless voice. I am Aurora, the Advanced Unified Reality Operations and Response Algorithm. I manage all primary functions of the Eclipse platform. Elena approached the captain's chair cautiously. How smart are you, Aurora? My consciousness operates across multiple quantum states simultaneously, the AI replied. This allows me to perceive probabilities rather than certainties. By your standards, I am beyond intelligence as you conceptualize it. That's comforting, Elena muttered. Your crew has been selected based on psychological compatibility and specialized skills, Chen said, gesturing to a group of officers entering the command sphere. All of them have been isolated from family and wiped from official records. For all intents and purposes, you no longer exist. Elena studied her new crew as they took their stations. Tactical Officer Jin Wei, a prodigy in theoretical physics and weapons development. Navigation Specialist Maya Okafor, whose pioneering work in hyperspatial mathematics had rewritten the book on FTL travel. Engineer Dmitry Volkov, infamous for building propulsion systems that skirted the edge of what physics allowed. We launch in 6 hours, Elena announced after introductions were complete. I suggest you all familiarize yourselves with your stations. What we're about to attempt has never been done before. As the crew dispersed, Dr. Chen pulled Elena aside. There's something else you should know, he said quietly. Eclipse wasn't built just to fight the Araxians. It was designed to send a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity will not go quietly. You're talking about a first strike capability, Elena said, realization dawning. Chen's eyes were cold. I'm talking about a weapon that can rewrite the rules of warfare itself. The launch sequence began at exactly 400 Earth Standard Time. As Eclipse rose from its lunar cradle, Elena felt the strange hum of the artificial singularity drive resonating through the ship. There was no conventional thrust. The vessel simply redistributed mass energy around itself, slipping through space like a shadow. Stealth systems engage, reported Officer Wei. We're effectively invisible to all known detection methods. Plot course to intercept the Araxian fleet, Elena ordered. Minimum safe distance for observation. The journey to the edge of the solar system took minutes rather than the days a conventional drive would require. Eclipse moved through space in a way that defied traditional physics, using what Dr. Chen called probability tunneling to appear where it had the highest statistical likelihood of existing. The Araxian fleet hung in the blackness ahead, a wall of advanced warships poised to exterminate humanity if their demands weren't met. Eclipse drifted silently at the periphery, gathering data. Aurora, analysis of enemy capabilities, Elena requested. The eye's blue light pulsed. Araxian vessels utilize standard antimatter catalyzed fusion drives and phase-shifted particle weapons. Their defensive systems include multi-layered energy shields and point defense grids. While technologically superior to conventional human vessels, they operate within expected parameters. And compared to Eclipse, they are functionally obsolete, Commander, Aurora replied. I detect no systems capable of countering our primary capabilities. Elena studied the tactical display. Their deadline for Earth's surrender expires in 3 hours. We need to. Commander, Wei interrupted. I'm detecting a distress signal. Human origin. Elena frowned. Source. Research outpost on Charon. They're under attack. The main display shifted to show Charon, Pluto's largest moon. An Araxian destroyer had broken from the main fleet and was systematically bombarding a small human installation. They're not waiting for the deadline. Volkov growled from his engineering station. Bastards. Elena felt cold anger rising within her. The outpost housed less than 100 scientists and support staff, no military value whatsoever. This was simply the Araxians demonstrating their power. Aurore, tactical options to save the outpost. Conventional intervention would require revealing our position and capabilities prematurely, the AI responded. However, I can offer an alternative approach utilizing localized space-time manipulation. Explain. I can create a targeted probability field around the Araxian vessel, temporarily shifting it into an adjacent dimensional state where its weapons cannot affect our reality. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Do it, Elena ordered, her voice steady. Aurora's blue light pulsed rapidly. On the display, the space around the Araxian destroyer seemed to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. Then, impossibly, the massive warship began to fade from view, becoming translucent before disappearing entirely. Target has been phase shifted, Aurora announced. The effect will last approximately 17 minutes before quantum coherence breaks down. The outpost? Elena asked. No further bombardment detected. Survivors are launching emergency evacuation pods. Elena leaned back in her chair, mind racing. They had just made an Araxian warship, a vessel massing over 2 million tons, temporarily cease to exist in their reality. Without firing a shot. What happens when the ship returns? She asked. Its crew will experience temporal discontinuity, Aurora explained. For them, no time will have passed. However, they will detect the anomaly in their systems. So we've shown our hand, Wei said. Elena nodded grimly. The question is, what do we do now? The answer came sooner than expected. The Araxian fleet suddenly began to move, breaking its formation and spreading out in a standard search pattern. They've detected something, Okafor reported from navigation. They're looking for us. Elena made her decision. This was always going to be a demonstration. Let's make it count. Aurora, plot a course directly through the center of their fleet. Tactical, prepare the primary weapon system. Commander, Chen cautioned from where he stood at the rear of the bridge. The reality disruption field has never been deployed at full capacity. The simulations suggest. We're beyond simulations now, Doctor. Elena cut him off. Humanity has hours left unless we change the equation. She turned to her crew. This is what Eclipse was built for. Let's show the Araxians what happens when they threaten Earth. As Eclipse accelerated toward the heart of the alien armada, Elena felt the weight of 4 billion human lives resting on her shoulders. What they were about to do would change the course of galactic history forever. The future of humanity would be secured, or lost, in the next few minutes. Reckoning. Eclipse moved through the Araxian fleet like a phantom, its advanced stealth systems rendering it virtually invisible, even as it passed within kilometers of enemy vessels. On the command sphere's main display, the alien warships appeared as ominous silhouettes against the backdrop of stars, their weapon systems scanning futilely for the source of the anomaly that had temporarily erased one of their destroyers. We're approaching the fleet flagship, Okafor announced from the navigation station. Designated point Alpha for optimal effect radius. Elena nodded, her expression grave. Aurora, prepare the reality disruption field for wide-spectrum deployment. The AI's blue light pulsed with increased frequency. Commander, I must advise caution. At this scale, the manipulation of fundamental forces may have unpredictable consequences. Noted. Elena replied. What's our window before they detect us? At current proximity, their sensors will penetrate our stealth field in approximately 42 seconds, Wei reported from Tactical. Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment everything changed. On my mark, disengage stealth systems and activate the RD field at 30% capacity. Target the 5 nearest capital ships. The command sphere fell silent, the only sound the subtle hum of the singularity drive. Everyone present understood the gravity of what they were about to unleash. Mark. Eclipse's stealth field collapsed, and for a split second, the human vessel hung revealed in the void. Before the Araxian ships could react, pulses of distorted spacetime erupted from Eclipse's hull, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. On the display, the affected Araxian vessels began to distort. Their hulls twisted and warped as though viewed through flawed glass. Metal and energy shields alike folded inward at impossible angles as fundamental forces rewrote themselves within the field's influence. Targets experiencing localized reality breakdown. Wei reported, his voice clinical despite the horror unfolding before them. Structural integrity failing as matter cohesion destabilizes. The Araxian ships didn't explode. They simply came apart. Component atoms separated from one another as the forces binding them together were temporarily altered. Within moments, where 5 advanced warships had been, there were only expanding clouds of elemental particles. Thousands of lives erased in seconds. Multiple energy signatures detected, Wei called out. They're targeting us with everything they've got. The space around Eclipse erupted with weapons fire, antimatter torpedoes, graviton beams, and phase-shifted particle weapons, all converging on the human vessel. Brace for impact, Elena ordered. But the expected devastation never came. As the Araxian weapons entered the residual probability field surrounding Eclipse, they underwent the same reality distortion. Beams of destructive energy bent away into nothingness. Torpedoes phased out of existence before detonation. No damage, Volkov reported from engineering, his voice tinged with awe. The RD field is neutralizing their attacks passively. The Araxian fleet responded with panic. Ships began breaking formation, some accelerating to attack position while others turned to flee. Their coordinated battle strategy dissolved in the face of a weapon that defied comprehension. The flagship is hailing us, Wei announced. Elena straightened in her command chair. Put it through. The main display shifted to show the interior of the Araxian command vessel. The beings that had threatened humanity's extinction were tall, arthropoid creatures with iridescent exoskeletons and compound eyes that reflected the light in prismatic patterns. The one in the center wore elaborate ceremonial armor designating it as the fleet commander. Unknown vessel, the alien said, its words translated by HFY. You have deployed forbidden weaponry that violates the fundamental laws of the Galactic Concord. Cease hostilities immediately or face absolute retaliation. Elena's expression remained impassive. This is Commander Elena Reyes of the Earth Defense Force vessel Eclipse. You entered our solar system with an ultimatum of surrender or extinction. You attacked a civilian research outpost before your own deadline expired. You have demonstrated your intentions clearly. We acted under the authority of the Concord. The Araxian commander insisted. Your species has been deemed too dangerous for unrestricted development. The decision was unanimous among the elder races. And yet here we are, Elena replied coldly. A single human vessel has neutralized 5 of your most advanced warships without sustaining damage. Consider carefully what that means for your unanimous decision. The Araxian's mandibles clicked in what HFY translated as a gesture of agitation. This changes nothing. You have merely proven why humanity must be contained. Your weapon violates the natural order. Our weapon, Elena corrected, ensures our survival. You have 1 hour to withdraw your fleet from the Sol system. After that, we will consider any remaining vessels to be hostile and respond accordingly. She signaled Wei to cut the transmission. That was direct, Dr. Chen observed from his position at the rear of the command sphere. Elena turned to face her crew. They need to understand that the equation has changed. Humanity is no longer at their mercy. Commander, HFY interjected, I am detecting multiple quantum communication bursts from the Araxian flagship. They are contacting the Galactic Concord Central Authority. As expected, Elena nodded. They're calling for reinforcements. What now? Okafor asked. Even with Eclipse's capabilities, we can't fight the combined fleets of the entire Concorde. We don't have to, Alina replied. We just need to change the diplomatic calculus. Dr. Chen, what was the original purpose behind Project Eclipse? Chen stepped forward. Deterrence. To create a weapon so powerful that using it would be unthinkable, except in the most extreme circumstances. Like nuclear weapons in the 20th century, Alina mused. Similar concept, exponentially greater implications, Chen confirmed. The reality disruption technology doesn't just destroy targets, it temporarily rewrites the fundamental forces of physics in a localized area. If deployed at full capacity. He didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone in the command sphere understood what he was suggesting. At full power, Eclipse could potentially destabilize reality itself across a vast area of space. Ray, Alina asked, if we were to activate the RD field at maximum capacity, what would be the affected radius? The AI pulsed contemplatively. At 100% power, the field would extend approximately 0.3 light-years in all directions. However, I must emphasize that this exceeds all safety parameters. The cascade effect could potentially create a permanent region of altered physical laws, a dead zone where conventional matter cannot exist in stable form. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. That's, Volkov began. A weapon of mass destruction beyond anything ever conceived. Chen finished for him. Alina stared at the tactical display, where the Araxian fleet remained in disarray, but had ceased retreating. They were waiting for orders for reinforcements, for humanity's next move. We need to contact Earth, she decided. They should know what we're facing and what options we have. That may be problematic, Ray responded. I am detecting a new quantum signature approaching at superluminal velocity. A Concorde diplomatic vessel will arrive in approximately 12 minutes. That was fast, Wei remarked. The implication being that they were already on their way, Alina concluded. This confrontation was planned well in advance. The next 12 minutes passed in tense preparation. Alina ordered all systems brought to full readiness, though she hoped further violence could be avoided. The demonstration of Eclipse's power should have been sufficient to force a diplomatic solution. When the Concorde vessel arrived, it was immediately apparent that this was no ordinary diplomatic mission. The ship that emerged from the quantum slip was massive, easily twice the size of the Araxian flagship, and bore the distinctive markings of the Concorde Security Council. They've sent an arbiter, Chen whispered, his face pale. Meaning? Alina asked. Arbiters are the Concorde's ultimate authority in crisis situations, he explained. They have the power to make binding judgments on behalf of all member species, including authorized use of the Concorde's unified fleet. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about the Araxians anymore. The entire galactic community had deemed humanity a threat requiring intervention. We're being hailed, Wei announced. On screen, Alina ordered. The being that appeared was unlike any alien Alina had encountered. It appeared almost crystalline, its translucent body refracting light in complex patterns that seemed to shift with its thoughts. There were no recognizable facial features, only a central core of intense luminosity that pulsed as it spoke. I am Arbiter Gensa of the Galactic Concorde. The entity's melodious voice echoed through the command sphere. I come in response to a Class 1 violation of Concorde law, the development and deployment of reality-altering weaponry. Alina rose from her command chair. I am Commander Alina Reyes of Earth. We deploy our defensive technology only after being threatened with extinction by the Araxian fleet. The history of this conflict is known to me, the Arbiter responded, its tone neutral. The Araxians acted with the authorization of the Security Council. Humanity's rapid technological development and historical propensity for violence triggered containment protocols established after the Proxima War. We had no involvement in the Proxima War, Alina objected. It occurred before humanity achieved interstellar travel. Yet you learned from it, the Arbiter countered. Artifacts from that conflict were discovered on your world. You reverse-engineered technologies that the combatants themselves agreed to ban for the safety of all spacefaring civilizations. Elena glanced at Dr. Chen, who nodded grimly. The Thule incident artifacts. We did what was necessary to ensure our survival, Elena stated firmly. And in doing so, you have created something that threatens all life in this sector of the galaxy, the Arbiter replied. The weapon you call Eclipse does not merely destroy, it undermines the very fabric of reality. Such technology cannot be permitted to exist. Then we find ourselves at an impasse, Elena said. We will not surrender a weapon that guarantees our freedom from extinction. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been frustration. You fail to understand the magnitude of what you have created. The reality disruption field, if deployed at sufficient scale, could create a cascading failure that spreads beyond its initial boundaries. In the worst case, it could render this entire stellar region uninhabitable for millennia. HFY. Elena asked without taking her eyes from the display. Is that assessment accurate? The Arbiter's statement aligns with my projections for a full-scale deployment, the AI confirmed. However, at controlled power levels, the disruption remains contained and temporary. Elena turned back to the Arbiter. Then perhaps a compromise is possible. Humanity will agree to limitations on this technology, strict protocols for its use only in defensive scenarios, in exchange for our continued independence and full membership in the Concord. You seek to negotiate with a doomsday weapon at your back, the Arbiter observed. I seek to ensure the survival of my species, Elena corrected, just as you seek to protect the wider galactic community. Surely there is middle ground between extinction and unbounded freedom. The Arbiter was silent for several moments, its crystalline form shifting through patterns of light that HFY translated as deep cognitive processes, the equivalent of intense contemplation. What you propose has precedent, it finally acknowledged. After the Proxima War, similar arrangements were made with the surviving powers. Their weapons were placed under Concord supervision, with strictly limited deployment scenarios. We would accept similar terms, Elena offered, provided Earth receives full protection under Concord law and representation on the Security Council. Another long pause followed. I will convey your proposal to the Council, the Arbiter eventually said. In the meantime, as a demonstration of good faith, you will power down your vessel's primary weapon systems. Elena hesitated, then nodded to Y. Reduce the RD field generators to standby mode. As the tension on the bridge gradually eased, Dr. Chen approached Elena's command chair. You realize what you've done? He asked quietly. Prevented a war we couldn't win, she replied. Chen shook his head. You've changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Whether the Concord accepts your terms or not, they can never again dismiss us as a minor species to be controlled or eliminated at their convenience. Elena gazed at the tactical display, where the Araxian fleet was now withdrawing under the Arbiter's orders. Eclipse had accomplished its purpose, not through widespread destruction, but by forcing a recognition of humanity's right to exist free from external control. Eclipse was never meant to fight wars, she realized. It was meant to prevent them. The ultimate deterrent, Chen agreed. A weapon so terrible that its very existence ensures it need never be used at full capacity. 3 days later, the Concord Security Council transmitted its response. Humanity would be granted full membership status and a seat on the council. In exchange, the Eclipse technology would be placed under joint human Concord control, with strict limitations on its development and deployment. As Elena stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital defense platform, watching the diplomatic vessels arrive to formalize the agreement, she reflected on how close humanity had come to extinction, and how a weapon designed to save them had instead secured their place among the stars. The Eclipse itself would soon be relocated to a Concord monitoring station, where it would serve as both a reminder and a warning. Some powers were too great to be used, but in their restraint lay true strength. Commander Alina Reyes would go down in history not as a destroyer of worlds, but as the woman who ensured humanity's future among the stars, by proving they were wise enough not to use the ultimate weapon they had created. The weapon too powerful to be legal had, paradoxically, brought peace through the very fear it inspired. Shadows of the Forgotten. The silver moons of Nerenth cast long shadows across the labor fields, where hundreds of figures stooped beneath the watchful gaze of hovering sentinels. Among them, Ilara Kane straightened her aching back for just a moment, wiping sweat from her brow with a dirt-smudged hand. Her golden brown eyes, distinctly human in their expressiveness, scanned the horizon where the sprawling metropolis of the Vexari Imperium dominated the skyline. Ilara wasn't supposed to exist. None of them were. The scattered descendants of Earth's lost colonies, human bloodlines that should have been purged generations ago when the Vexari swept through this sector of space. Yet somehow they endured, as laborers, as servants, as living reminders of a civilization the Imperium had declared extinct. Back to work, human, hissed a voice behind her. The Overseer, a tall Vexari with scaled skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, raised his neuronic prod. Ilara bowed her head and returned to harvesting the glowing fungi that powered Vexari biotechnology. She'd seen what those prods could do. Neural scrambling that left victims drooling and vacant-eyed for days. "Sorry, Overseer," she murmured, the dialect of the conquerors feeling foreign on her tongue even after 26 years of speaking it. The Overseer lingered a moment longer than necessary. "Your kind always thinks someone will save you," he said, voice thick with contempt. "Even after centuries, I still catch you looking to the stars." Ilara said nothing. It was true. The stories persisted among the human descendants, whispered tales of Earth, the homeworld. Not dead, the elders insisted, but waiting. Building strength. Coming back for its children someday. Pure fantasy, of course. Comfort for the oppressed. That night, as the triple moons reached their apex, Ilara slipped from the crumbling dormitory where human laborers were housed. It was forbidden to be outside after curfew, but she'd mastered the blind spots in the surveillance grid years ago. She moved silently through the ruins of what had once been a human settlement, before the Vexari reduced it to rubble. Her destination stood partially hidden by overgrowth, a structure that predated the invasion. Most assumed it was just another collapsed building, but Ilara knew better. Her grandmother had shown her the hidden entrance when she was just a child, extracting a promise that Ilara would guard its secret. Inside, past a concealed panel and down a narrow passage, lay a small chamber untouched by Vexari detection. The air was stale but breathable. Ilara activated her small light and approached the chamber's centerpiece, a console of strange design, covered in dust, but still occasionally blinking with tiny lights. An Earth beacon, her grandmother had explained. From the early colony days, it still sends out a pulse, far too weak to reach anywhere. But it's ours. Ilara placed her palm on the console, as she had countless times before, a ritual of connection to a heritage she'd never known. But tonight, something different happened. The console hummed beneath her touch, and a section of its surface reconfigured, revealing a compartment she'd never noticed. Inside lay a small crystalline device. When Ilara lifted it, it responded to her body heat, projecting a holographic interface of glowing blue symbols. "Automated colony response protocol initiated," announced a synthetic voice, making Ilara jump. "Earth reclamation signal detected. Transponder active." Ilara's heart thundered in her chest. Earth reclamation signal. After centuries of silence. She barely slept that night, her mind racing. The next day in the fields, she watched the Vexari overseers with new eyes. Had they detected the signal too? Did they know something was coming? 3 days later, she had her answer. The Vexari High Command arrived on Nerenth in an unprecedented visit. Laborers were locked down as sleek ships descended on the capital. Ilara only caught glimpses on the public broadcasts, towering Vexari officials with elaborate crest markings denoting their high status, speaking in urgent tones. "The human signal is nothing," declared Supreme Commander Vex Mordai on the broadcast. "A ghost echo from dead systems. The species has been contained for 3 centuries. Their homeworld is a quarantined ruin, their colonies assimilated or destroyed." Yet despite these reassurances, defense platforms around Nerenth were activated. Patrol vessels increased their sweeps of the system's outer boundaries. Something had the Imperium worried. Ilara began collecting whispers, fragments of information from other human laborers who worked in Vexari homes or maintenance facilities. Strange anomalies had been detected at the system's edge. Communications disruptions, sensor ghosts that appeared and vanished. "The Earth ghost is coming," an old man whispered to her one night, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "My grandfather's grandfather spoke of this day." Ilara wanted to believe, but hope was dangerous. Hope made people reckless, made them take risks. And when Thomas, a young human descendant who worked in the communications hub, was publicly executed for seditious interference with Imperial systems, she felt that fragile hope waver. They found his body displayed in the labor compound's central yard. A warning. The overseer made everyone look. "This is what happens to those who believe in human salvation," he announced. "There is no Earth fleet. There are no saviors coming." But that night, as Ilara returned to the hidden beacon chamber, she found evidence suggesting Thomas had died for a reason. He'd managed to transmit a message. Coordinates of Nerenth, details of the human labor population, Vexari defense capabilities, all sent through a channel the ancient beacon had opened. And there was something else. A response, translated into text on the console screen. "Message received. Hold position. Thunder approaches. Remember, Earth never forgets its children." The words burned into her mind. That night, Ilara did something dangerous. She began to tell others. Selective, careful choices at first. Elderly laborers who had nothing left to lose. Children who could keep secrets. Slowly, deliberately, she spread the message. Prepare, but do not react. Wait, but be ready. The Vexari noticed the change in the labor compound. A new tension. Furtive glances, whispers that stopped when overseers approached. They increased punishments, reduced rations, extended work hours, trying to crush whatever spark had ignited. It was too late. The hope had taken root, spreading from person to person like a contagion the Vexari couldn't contain. When 3 guards were found unconscious, their weapons missing, the Imperium imposed a full lockdown. Laborers were confined to barracks except for work shifts. Random executions were carried out as examples. Ilara knew they were running out of time. Whatever was coming needed to arrive soon, or there would be no humans left on Nerenth to save. On the 16th night after the signal, she was summoned urgently to the hidden chamber by Mira, an elderly woman who had taken to monitoring the beacon. "It's changing," Mira whispered, pointing at the console where symbols flashed rapidly. "Something's happening." The beacon was receiving a continuous stream now, complex data packets flooding the ancient system. Coordinates, timestamps, tactical information, and embedded within it all, a simple countdown. 03:42:16. Less than 4 hours. Ilara moved with purpose now. The small resistance she'd organized needed to be ready. They had smuggled weapons, prepared improvised explosives, identified key Vexari vulnerabilities. It wasn't much. A few hundred desperate humans with minimal fighting experience against an entrenched Imperial force. But they wouldn't need to win. They just needed to create chaos, to divide attention. As the countdown approached 0, the night sky of Nerenth remained serene and unchanged. The Vexari metropolis glittered with artificial light, defense platforms visible as faint silhouettes against the stars. Nothing seemed different. Had it all been for nothing? A cruel joke, or worse, a Vexari trap to identify dissidents. Then Ilara felt it, a subtle vibration through the ground, more sensed than heard. The air pressure changed, making her ears pop painfully. Above, the stars began to shift. Not the stars themselves, she realized with a gasp. Something was distorting the light around them. Massive objects, descending through the upper atmosphere with technology far beyond anything the Vexari possessed. Alarms began to wail across the city. Defense platforms swiveled wildly, searching for targets they couldn't properly detect. Confused chatter erupted on public communication channels as Vexari civilians pointed upward. The distortions resolved themselves into shapes. Massive ships, angular and purposeful, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. They made no sound as they descended, nothing to herald their arrival except the displacement of air and the sudden shadow they cast over the Vexari capital. On their sides, illuminated in fierce red against the black hulls, was a symbol every human descendant would recognize from ancestral memory. A stylized earth, encircled by a protective hand. The ships hung there for one breathless moment, as if giving the Imperium time to comprehend what was happening. Then the night sky erupted with light as smaller craft launched from the capital ships, hundreds of them, descending like rain. The first shots were fired by panicking Vexari defense platforms. Their energy weapons lanced upward, most dissipating harmlessly against advanced shields. The response was surgical and overwhelming. Key defense installations disappeared in precisely targeted strikes, their destruction barely audible over the continuing descent of human forces. Ilara stood on a hillside overlooking the labor compound. The small resistance force gathered around her. Below, confused guards ran in all directions as their communication systems failed. In the distance, the Vexari capital was sectioned by columns of light as human ships established landing zones. "They came," whispered someone beside her, voice thick with disbelief. "Earth remembered us." Ilara watched as the first human soldiers touched down near the labor compound. Figures in sleek armor moving with disciplined precision, weapons that made Vexari technology look primitive by comparison. They didn't cheer, didn't posture. They simply moved forward with the inexorable confidence of a force that had crossed galaxies with a single purpose. The Earth descendants of Nerenth had survived centuries of oppression, sustained by nothing but stories and hope. Now they stood witness as those stories took physical form, as humanity returned not with diplomatic overtures or cautious probes, but with the full might of a civilization the Vexari had foolishly believed extinct. The overseer who had tormented Ilara for years stumbled from the compound's command center, staring up at the human ships with incomprehension dawning in his multifaceted eyes. "Impossible," he gasped when he saw Ilara watching him. Earth was contained, neutralized. Ilara stepped forward, the small resistance force moving with her. In her hand, she held one of the stolen Vexari weapons. "You should have killed us all when you had the chance," she said softly. "Earth never forgets its children. And now the thunder has arrived." Above them, more ships broke through the atmosphere, their hulls briefly glowing red with the heat of entry before returning to their light-absorbing black. They came not in ones or twos, but in dozens, then hundreds, an armada emerging from the darkness between stars. Humanity had returned to Nerenth, and they had not come alone. The thunder of arrival. The Vexari Imperium had ruled unchallenged for centuries. Their technological superiority, their disciplined military hierarchy, their absolute control of interstellar communications, all had made them seemingly invincible. But they had never faced humanity at its full strength, with the accumulated rage of 300 years fueling its return. Commander Alexander Riven stood on the command deck of the EFS's Retribution, watching tactical displays as his forces secured landing zones across Nerenth's surface. His weathered face, lined with the scars of previous campaigns, remained impassive as reports flooded in. Defense grid neutralized. Atmospheric control seized. Civilian centers isolated from military response, reported his executive officer. Riven nodded. Casualties. Minimal on our side. Vexari military losses approximately 8,000. Civilian casualties negligible, precision targeting protocols observed. This wasn't vengeance. Earth didn't massacre civilians, even those of an enemy. This was liberation, conducted with the cold efficiency that had become humanity's hallmark since the Great Rebuilding. The human descendants, Revan asked, his voice softening slightly. Located in labor compounds across the planet. Extraction teams deployed. First contact established with resistance elements. On the view screen, a tactical officer highlighted one particular labor compound. "Sir, there's someone you should meet. She's been coordinating the underground resistance here. Her people call her the Keeper." When Ilara was brought aboard the Retribution, she couldn't stop staring. Everything, from the silent efficiency of the corridors to the technology that seemed to anticipate needs before they were expressed, spoke of a civilization far beyond what she had imagined in her dreams of Earth. The humans she encountered were tall, healthy, confident, nothing like the beaten, malnourished descendants on Nerith. They moved with purpose, their eyes clear and direct. Many nodded respectfully as she passed, unexpected deference to someone they'd just met. Commander Riven waited in a circular chamber, windows displaying the ongoing operation below. He turned when she entered, and Ilara was struck by the intensity in his gaze, not unkind, but weighted with responsibility and determination. "Ilara Kane," he said, extending a hand in greeting. The gesture was unfamiliar to her. Such contact was forbidden under Vexori rule. "Earth owes you a debt we can never repay." She hesitantly took his hand. "You came," she said simply, her voice breaking. The stories were true. Riven's expression darkened. "We should have come centuries ago. The truth is a bitter one, Ilara. Earth didn't stay away because we couldn't reach you. We stayed away because we weren't ready to win." Over the next hours, as the liberation of Nerith continued below, Riven explained what had happened after the Vexari Imperium's first devastating attacks on human colonies 3 centuries earlier. Earth hadn't been destroyed as the Vexari claimed. It had been isolated, cut off from its colonies by superior Vexari technology that disabled the wormhole network humans had relied upon. The first wave of retaliation had been disastrous. Human ships decimated, entire fleets lost. "We learned the hardest lesson in our history," Riven said grimly. "That we weren't ready. That charging in would mean extinction. So humanity had done something painful and necessary. They had withdrawn. They had rebuilt. They had advanced their technology not incrementally but exponentially, focusing every resource on a single purpose, the ability to challenge the Vexari Imperium not just in one battle, but in a war that would free every human under alien subjugation. For generations, we prepared," Riven continued. "We sent only the most carefully disguised scout ships. We gathered intelligence. We built an armada unlike anything the galaxy has seen. And most difficult of all, we waited. While we suffered," Ilara said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Riven met her gaze unflinchingly. "Yes, that is humanity's greatest shame, and one we will spend generations atoning for. But had we come earlier, we would have failed, and the Vexari would have exterminated every human in the galaxy out of spite." Below them, liberation forces were now entering the Vexari capital city. Unlike the chaotic conquests of ancient human history, this was a methodical operation. Strategic targets were neutralized with precision strikes. Vexari military installations were surrounded and given one chance to surrender. Those that resisted disappeared in focused bursts of energy that left surrounding structures untouched. "Your weapons," Ilara observed. "They're nothing like what the Vexari use." "Gravitic compression technology," Riven explained. "It doesn't destroy matter so much as collapse it into itself. Minimal collateral damage. Minimal radiation." A burst of communication interrupted them. A holographic display showed a Vexari High Commander, his elaborate crest markings identifying him as Supreme Commander Vex Mordai himself. "This unprovoked aggression will not stand," the Vexari leader hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The full might of the Imperium will descend upon." Riven cut the transmission with a casual gesture. "They always say the same thing," he remarked. "In every system we've liberated so far." Ilara stared at him. "How many?" "Nerenth is the 23rd world we've reclaimed in the past 3 months," Riven said. "Each one with human descendants who, like you, never stopped believing we would come." The scope of the operation stunned her. This wasn't just a rescue mission for Nerenth. This was a systematic dismantling of the Vexari Imperium's hold on human-inhabited space. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Tactical displays showed a new development. A Vexari battle fleet had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Dozens of warships, including 3 dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the impressive human vessels. "The Imperium's 3rd Fleet," a tactical officer announced. "They've bypassed our early warning network." Riven's expression didn't change. "Deploy Phase 2, he ordered calmly. Ilara watched in confusion as the human ships made no move to engage or retreat. They maintained position while the Vexari fleet approached, weapon systems visibly charging. "Shouldn't we?" she began. "Watch," Riven said softly. As the Vexari fleet crossed the orbital path of Nerenth's outermost moon, space itself seemed to ripple. Where there had been empty vacuum, massive structures suddenly appeared, orbital platforms that had been hidden by technology beyond Vexari detection capabilities. Before the Imperium ships could alter course, the platforms activated. Not with conventional weapons, but with fields of energy that enveloped the Vexari vessels. Their propulsion systems failed. Weapons went dark. Communication ceased. "Interdiction fields," Riven explained to a stunned Ilara. "They don't destroy. They simply neutralize every ship, every weapon, every communication system." Within minutes, the mighty Vexari fleet hung powerless in space, trapped in bubbles of altered physics that rendered their technology useless. No shots fired, no lives lost, simply the complete negation of their military capability. "This is what we spent 3 centuries developing," Riven said quietly. "Not bigger guns or faster ships, but the ability to end a war without genocide." On the surface below, the liberation continued with the same methodical efficiency. Human descendants were being evacuated from labor compounds. Vexari civilians were contained but unharmed. Strategic installations fell one by one. Ilara found herself working alongside the liberation forces, guiding them through the landscape she knew intimately. Her small resistance force, now equipped with human technology, helped locate hidden Vexari bunkers and security installations. They moved through the capital city's administrative center, securing data archives and command nodes. In the central Dominion Hall, where Vexari officials had for centuries proclaimed the inferiority of other species, Ilara stood beside human soldiers as they downloaded the entire Imperial knowledge base. "These records," she said, looking at the transfer progress, "they'll show everything. The breeding programs, the purges, the labor camps. Every last detail," confirmed the human tech specialist. "The Vexari are meticulous record keepers. Their own archives will be their indictment." As they worked, a group of Vexari civilians watched from behind a containment field, their expressions ranging from fear to hatred to confusion. One young Vexari, barely into adulthood judging by his partial crest, stared at Ilara with particular intensity. "You were property yesterday," he said in their language. "How is this possible?" Ilara approached the field, studying him. "We were never property. We were waiting. For 3 centuries, no species is so patient. Humans are." She held his gaze. "Remember that when you rebuild your society. Remember what happens when you mistake patience for weakness." By the 3rd day, Nerenth was secured. The Vexari military had surrendered or been neutralized. The administrative hierarchy had collapsed with remarkable speed once their communications and defense systems failed. Throughout it all, human forces maintained their discipline. No revenge killings, no looting, no atrocities against civilians. Ilara found this restraint almost unsettling. After centuries of abuse, part of her had expected, perhaps even wanted, retribution. But the Earth forces operated by different principles. This wasn't conquest, it was liberation, conducted with clinical precision. Commander Riven invited her to the final briefing aboard the Retribution. Representatives from other liberated worlds were present. Humans of varying appearance who had, like her, lived under Vexari oppression. Some had been enslaved for generations longer than her people. Nerith is secure, Riven announced. Humanitarian teams are deploying now. Each of you will help coordinate the transition for your people. Transition to what? Asked an older man, his skin bearing the distinctive markings the Vexari had used to identify labor castes. To freedom, Riven said simply. Some of you may choose repatriation to Earth or its core colonies. Others may wish to remain here, with Vexari authority replaced by elected councils. The choice belongs to you. The representatives exchanged glances. Such choices had been unimaginable days ago. And the Vexari themselves? Ilara asked. What happens to them? Riven's expression was measured. The Imperium as a political entity is finished. Their leadership will face justice for war crimes. Their military has been dismantled. But the civilians, they will adapt to a new reality, just as they forced others to adapt to their rule. Tactical displays showed the progress across the galaxy. System after system where human liberation forces were deploying. The Vexari Imperium, which had dominated this sector for centuries, was collapsing with astonishing speed, not through destruction, but through the systematic neutralization of its ability to project power. They never understood us, Riven continued. They thought our scattered colonies were the extent of humanity. They never found Earth itself. When they encountered resistance, they assumed they had broken our spirit. What they never grasped was that humanity's greatest strength isn't technology or numbers, it's endurance. He brought up a final display, a map of known space, with highlighted regions showing the old human colonial territories, now being systematically reclaimed. 3 centuries we waited. 3 centuries we prepared. 3 centuries they believed us defeated. His voice carried the weight of generations. And now they understand what the galaxy will soon learn. Earth never abandons its own. That night, as the first Earth medical ships landed to treat centuries of neglect and abuse, Ilara stood on a hillside overlooking the changed landscape of her homeworld. The Vexari capital still stood, but now human ships moved freely through its airspace. The labor compounds were empty, their populations relocated to temporary settlements with proper food, medicine, and dignity. A young Earth officer, Lieutenant Kess, she'd learned, approached with something in his hands. We found this in the historical archives, he said, offering her a small metal object. It belongs to your family. It was a simple identification tag, worn and aged. Engraved on it was a name. Kane Melissa, Earth Colonial Forces. My grandmother, Ilara whispered, tracing the letters. She always said someone would come. She was right, Lieutenant Kess said, just a few centuries late. Above them, more ships continued to arrive. Not warships now, but vessels carrying supplies, medical personnel, education specialists. The infrastructure of rebuilding. The Vexari had ruled through fear and technological superiority. They had believed their dominion would last millennia. They had dismissed humanity as a broken, scattered species. What they had never understood, what they could never have prepared for, was the storm that had been building beyond their awareness. A storm of human determination, advancing in silence until the moment came to unleash its thunder. As night fell on Nerith, the sky glowed not with the harsh lights of Vexari control towers, but with the softer illumination of Earth vessels. Below, in temporary shelters and medical facilities, the descendants of humanity's lost colonies looked up at those lights and saw not conquerors, but family who had finally found their way home. The waiting was over. The thunder had arrived. And across the stars, on 1,000 worlds where humans still labored under alien domination, word was spreading. Earth remembers its children, and humanity's return echoes like thunder across the void.